Welcome back, one and all, my friends. It is time for part 2. I'll add that at the time we were playing games where there were regularly 6 or 7 players, so he's fairly marginalized. And most of why we put up with him. That and the people he lived with, so you can never quite escape him following. He played a rogue once, after having seen someone else, possibly me, do this. He had a thing for copying other people's characters, pretty much verbatim, and then just describing them all weeaboo-like and sulking when they did stuff he did better than them. You know the apocryphal story about the player who goes up to the LG captain of the guard and says, "Oh, by the way, I'm chaotic evil, so if you ever need someone assassinated, just ask me, haha, wink wink." Yeah. He then proceeds to get pissy and storm off while the guard turns around and arrests him. He also played Blackguard, an evil game, where we were basically resurrected villains of the game world's past, called together to do great dastardly works and whatnot. He decided, without checking with the DM, that he was the high priest of the evil god that the people resurrecting us worked for. He then gave this huge, long backstory about how he assaulted a banquet of paladins with his army, but been defeated, and then resurrected, and that's why he's here. It took us a minute to think this through, this great and powerful high priest who, in the backstory, was slaying heroes left, right, and center, pissing on altars, sleeping with beautiful women, whose name was apparently legendary, had knowingly attacked a gathering of paladins having lunch, and lost. This eventually evolved into the tale of how Luke attacked the Sunday school trip to Pizza Hut with a cabbage and lost. That's before you even get to the disconnect with how he roleplayed it and how he described it. At this point, another Anon, possibly Cirque or Nardia, pipes in. Sadly, I was never around for him DMing his own game. I've only ever heard some of the stories of how bad it was. Mostly involving how he was a railroading asshole with no idea of how the rules worked. And how he turned one of the PCs into a scaly with a tail that got longer by a foot a day, and increased the PC's stats by +2 every foot it grew. He also had a DMPC paladin that kept turning up and winking, making bad guys explode, or completely disabling the player so he could go off on a huge fan wank exposition about something really awesome and super cool was happening. Yeah, with the obvious caveat that this is Luke, and his ability to describe uber super cool was limited to, "It needs more katanas and wings and sparkles." It says enough for itself, really. Let's just say a lot of the file names were anagrams for cats, and that his chair had these mysterious white stains and a small triangle near the front of the seat that he claimed were from him dropping yogurt. Anyway, I had to head out for a bit, so I can't regale you with much more of the tales of Luke and his terrible. Beyond that, though, I just have to deal with the homebrewer who can only roleplay himself, aka chaotic, stubbornly stupid. The railroading pedophile rules lawyer who doesn't know the rules and has hygiene and self-care almost as bad as Luke, and is generally just another asshole. The short period where the guy who wants to play the little cat girl and seduce the PCs joined the game I was running. Joy. The upside is I also get to play with someone who regularly plays Lawful Good Right, or Alzheimer's Dwarf when he's trolling 2 bad DMs. Someone who plays Chaotic Angry Right and has a fairly enjoyable, if Mary Sue DMPC heavy homebrew system. He gets away with it because we don't take it seriously, and he seems to actually enjoy that. And a guy who loves playing min-maxed fighter types as embittered heroes. Thus ends the prelude. And begins the first thread. Part the first. The story of Luke, plague son of Nurgle, continues. I shall regale you now with the tale of my people. I first met Luke on the first night of university, The only one's not drinking that night, and he invited me to his room. My first mistake. His room was on the highest floor of the building, a fact that I would later grow to be very grateful for in the extreme, and out of the way of the rest of us in the house were the third-year transfer students. We had been in the halls of residence for a scant 6 months. His room was an absolute mess. Boxes overturned, clothes strewn everywhere, a hastily set up Xbox on one side, a smelly beanbag, and a camping chair. At the time, I was naive enough to have not seen the way most people live, and Luke was scrubbed clean and in ironed clothes, so I made the assumption that perhaps he'd arrived late, or maybe just a little untidy. We played bad racing games for half an evening before I got tired of crashing fast-moving trucks into walls for points. We said our goodnights, and I went back to my room on the ground floor. So began my Luke experience, one which was to last for nearly 4 years. Right from the word go, he was a bit of an outsider, tolerated mostly due to habitual British politeness and an unwillingness to be a git. At the time, we weren't even people who could be classed as true neckbeards. I mean, I played a little Magic the Gathering, and one of our numbered played Magic the Gathering, had a little experience of 3.5. Of course, as such things go, we all ended up getting involved in societies, and by the end of the first term, I was playing 2 3.5 homebrews and a Unisystem game. Those are completely different stories, however. Of course, we passed around what we knew. We all started to dabble in a bit of everything. Luke picked stuff up as well, but it was obvious that he wasn't as quick as the rest of us. But we're patient. We noticed 2 things here. The first is that he would act as arrogant as he could in all situations. Even the ones where he cast terror on a pit trap. The second, that whenever I lent him a deck, it would always come back strangely a little harder to shuffle. It's about this time that I started to teach the other members of the group the nuance of Warhammer 40k. As with everything else, Luke picked things up a little slower than the rest of us. This was offset in part by the fact that he apparently had the unlimited riches of his parents to call upon. Up until this point, we had made light of the fact he would regularly be seen with a big tub of Ben and Jerry's ice cream in his greasy, possibly hairy palms. Another one for later, if I get that far. But silently I wondered how someone could afford to dine on such things with a student budget. Half a week after the rules were passed around and we played the few test games, he turned up in the kitchen with a full 2,000 points Marine Army, complete with a 1,000 point Grey Knight. All metal model detachment for use in larger games. And hereby begins Case Study 1. Case Study 1 will wait till the next episode. Thank you all for watching. If you're enjoying this and would like to support this channel, you can do that by donating to my Patreon or buying stuff from the merch store. And if you have your own story that you'd like to send in, you can do that by going to r/Moonhorse Stories and sending it there. I very happily await your story. I'll see you guys in the next episode, okay? I love you all. Goodbye.